This screencast is about how to write formulas from the names of compounds. Previously, we looked at the rules that we work our way through when we're given a formula and we want to write the name. So now we're going in reverse. When we are writing formulas from names for ionic compounds, we're going to be looking at a metal and a nonmetal, or there may also be polyatomic ions, but the key here is that we're dealing with ions. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the name and we're going to separate it into the two ions that make up the compound. We'll find the charge on both of the ions, and then we'll use our crisscross method to write the formula. So for example, if we're given iron 3 sulfate, we're going to break this up into our two ions. So I have iron 3 and I have sulfate. Next, I'm going to write the symbols for each of the ions. So iron 3 is Fe plus 3, and sulfate is SO4 minus 2. Now what we're going to do is the crisscross method. So this is where we take the number only and cross it to be the subscript for the other element or ion. So we don't move the charge, we don't move the plus or minus, we're only moving the number. So when we do this, we end up with a formula of Fe2SO43, and because we're adding a subscript to a polyatomic ion, our polyatomic ion goes into parentheses. This should be a review from earlier in this unit when we worked on the crisscross method. If we are writing formulas from a molecular compound, so we have molecular formulas, we're given the name, you're going to remember that's from two nonmetals, and we use our prefixes to determine the number of atoms, and then we place that number after the symbol. What is most important is that you do not cross numbers. There are no charges. Okay, when we're dealing with molecular formulas, there are no ions, so there are no charges, so we're not crossing anything over. We're simply using the prefix to help us figure out how many atoms there are for each element. So for example, dihydrogen monoxide, the di tells me there are two hydrogens, so I write H2. Monoxide, the mono tells me there's one oxygen, so it's O. So my formula is H2O. Remember that these compounds all end in IDE. Okay, the next one is dichlorine heptaoxide. Again, the prefix di tells me that there are two chlorines, and the prefix hepta tells me that there are 7 oxygens, so I have Cl2O7. Again, notice that the compound ends in IDE. So the compound will always end in IDE. You have to figure out what element that represents. No crossing numbers or anything, simply using your prefixes to determine what the subscript should be on the element that's provided. Please jot down any questions that you may have and ask Mrs. Benke in class.